Good.
I see her. There she is.
Hi.
Hey, hi.
Hello. Hi.
Welcome to the Addiction Connection podcast, connecting the hope of the gospel to the heart of addiction. I'm your host, Mark Shaw. She's an accomplished actress who left a career in school teaching to pursue her dream. Had an important role in the show Dopesick, where she epitomized love to one of the main characters, Dr. Finnick. I was just so honored to be able to get to know her better, hear her story and her love for her family, hear about her wonderful father, and I think you're going to enjoy this interview with Arischa Conner. Hey, it is so nice to meet you. Thanks for being
Nice to
on.
meet you too.
Yes.
When we saw a comment, I told my son, I said, maybe she'll do the podcast. We'd be blown away if you did. And he reached out and I mean, we're just thrilled. We're honored and grateful to have you. I'm like, she's uber talented. What are we going to do? I mean, this just lets you talk and you teach us.
No. So first, let me say thank you for having me. Because being a part of Dopesick was something that I really wanted to do. And just to, my father is actually a minister as well, and my grandfather. So I come from a family of ministers, United Methodist ministers. But I was involved in, and this is just real quick. I was in a play called Misery is Optional,
Yes.
which was based on. Oh, did you see that?
Yes.
Yeah. And so because of Misery is Optional and being able to portray those different characters and actually meeting them, and one of the characters I portrayed, which was my favorite, he and I actually did a play together after I was able to meet him after telling his story. So it was just really close to my heart. So being able to understand, what addiction is and how it does something to your brain, and being, makes you dope sick. And then this project comes along and I'm like, oh my gosh, I really want to do this because a lot of people aren't educated and don't realize. So I'm just happy to be here.
I'm nervous in front of you, Arischa. So.
No need to be at all. None.
Well, what I really appreciated about you when I watched Dopesick, I just thought this is a talented actress who seems like you're kind of being yourself in the, I'm not an actor, and I've always thought if I had to act or do something, the only person I know how to be is me, and me in that character. And I've heard you talk about that. Could you talk a little bit about that in Dopesick?
Definitely. So when I was in high school and into college, my father is a dentist and he has his own office. So when I walked onto the set of Dopesick, I was like, wow, this looks like my father's office that I used to work right there at the front desk. And what I did was I thought of Michael Keaton as my father, like his character as my father, and like, what would I do? What did I do in these circumstances? How was I, when I was in the office, and how would I feel if these things, were happening to my father? So it was, and like you said, I feel like we can't be anybody but ourselves. So as an actor, I'm just myself, just in a different situation. So I'm just being me, in a hyper real reality, under different circumstances. So yeah, I was just being myself. And so one thing that I remember when I listened to your podcast is you were saying about the love that I felt, and it was complete. I was amazed that you were able to see that, because I was like, that's exactly what it was. It was just me pouring the love that I have from my father and my experiences in that moment.
Yeah.
Well, I was blown away. I just thought she is really good. I mean, that was coming across, and the tension that they put your character in. It was Leah Turner, right? Is that was the name? And they put you had to turn him in. I don't know how many people have watched it, but they need to watch Dopesick and really everything you do. They put you in this tension of you've got to turn him in, but you're also, you love him and you don't want to hurt him and harm him. And so that really came through, I thought, exceptionally well and Jim probably agrees with me. I'll throw it over to Jim. He was the reason we even watched the series and talked about it. It was Jim Quigley's idea, so I had to have him on with me on this podcast to meet you. I know that was exciting to him.
Yeah,
Oh, wow,
I
thank
I
you.
loved the show. You wouldn't know this, Arischa, but I lived that life for about a third of my life. I was a pain pill addict myself, and so in one of your previous interviews, you mentioned Michael Keaton's role in Clean and Sober, and I remembered way back then and thinking when he did that role, he's so convincing as somebody he must be drawing from somewhere. So I knew he was going to be fantastic in this role because if you've lived it, or even if you haven't lived it, if I ever want somebody, if someone asks me questions, like, hey, that's a good place to go. And because that's what movies do, right? Actors act and they get us immersed into an experience. And sometimes they're not able to do that. But that show is through all the characters, not just Michael Keaton, but all the characters. They really capture that addiction very, very well. Because I lived it and I was like, this is an accurate portrayal. But the one question that was burning was your role, as Michael Keaton's drawing from something to I don't know if he's ever experienced addiction, but I was wondering what you were drawing from, because you were exactly portraying that role to where I was like, I wondered myself, like, does she know somebody that she loved dearly in addiction? But it totally makes sense that you thought about your dad, and that was coming. It came out beautifully, because I was almost thinking that you had somebody that had, struggled that close in your life, but it would make total sense that you were just thinking about your dad. You have a sister, right? You and your sister were raised by a single father and great man, dentist. And I was actually kind of hoping when I heard you talk about going into HBCU that you went to Benedict College in Columbia, because you would have gotten to college right down the street from me. I was at small Bible college just a mile away from Benedict in Columbia, South Carolina. So
it's what is it? What's the name of it?
Columbia International University. It's right.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. I've seen that. Oh, okay, awesome. Small world.
So I was going to ask you if you knew what Zestos was in the middle of Columbia.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. And let me say, I don't know if any of you saw when Michael Keaton won the Emmy Award. And when he did his speech, his nephew, if I'm not mistaken, passed away from addiction. And so he dedicated his trophy to his nephew. So I'm quite sure, like when we were on set together, like he was very, very, very focused in on his character, and he really wanted to make sure that when he was coming across, that it was coming across authentic. Like I remember this moment right before we did our scene in episode 6. He was, he was walking around in a circle, and we were in the apartment. He was like, "Okay, guys, I'm ready." He just wanted to make sure that he was in, and really connected. So I can imagine. And when he received his Emmy Award, he broke down and cried as he dedicated. I broke down and cried too. I was sitting here at home, rooting and so happy, for that moment that he was able to honor his nephew, in that way. And also I was in a play called Misery is Optional, and it was a documentary theater piece. It came directly from the stories of 40 people who were in active recovery from drugs and alcohol. And I played about 8 of those characters. And I remember there was this one story that I would tell. Even thinking about it, it's emotional because her story, because they talk about, their whole journey, like when they were really in the middle of it. And she was just talking about when she was like at the bottom and how it felt. And it was just the most just heart-wrenching piece that I did in that particular story. And then to be able to meet each and every person I played, now that they're in active recovery, it holds a special place in my heart. Like I know that when I get up there and I start making some big dough, to give back, like I was in New York, and there's a guy, he had a store, and the store is called State of Gratitude. He has T-shirts and hats because he's in active recovery. And when he was during the pandemic and he felt so alone, he created this company to raise money to give back. And I was drawn to the store, and I was like, yo, what is this? And he told me a story, and I'm like, please, let me buy a shirt. I want to support, because I understand those stories. And the writers of Misery is Optional, we told their stories as well, because they're both in active recovery. So yeah, it's close to me. Yeah.
And so when you're thinking back, you've done this Misery is Optional, and you've had all these experiences, and you get this opportunity. You see something about Dopesick, and I don't really understand how all that works, but somehow you found out they needed somebody. And just tell me, were you like, yeah, I can do this? Or
Yeah.
tell me your thought processes and how you just kind of read whatever they send you and thought, I need to do that.
Certainly. So I have an agent. I'm with J. Purvis Talent, Pantheon Management in LA, and Natasha Garcia of AGI Entertainment. So I get auditions. So I had just done a show called Swagger that is on Apple TV Plus that was casted by Arischa Arvald. Arischa Arvald is a casting director in the Southeast, and she also was the casting for the Southeast crew from Dopesick. So I got an audition. I auditioned about 5 times for like various roles. Yeah. And I remember when I watched the show, I see the roles. Like this lady walked into the bathroom and she was saying something to another character. Like I was like, I auditioned for that role. But when I auditioned for the Leah Turner, when I saw Dopesick, of course I tried to research. And Beth Macy, I think, was the author of the book. So I always get a copy of the book. Mm-hmm. I try to either listen or read some to get an idea of what it is. But I was already connected because I had this relationship with Misery is Optional and all of those persons. Mm-hmm. So when I got it, I was like, oh my goodness, I really want to be a part of this, because the world needs to be educated. The world needs to be educated. That was just in my thoughts. And so as I was auditioning for these different parts, I wasn't hearing back. And then I got this one for Leah Turner. I auditioned, and the casting director contacted me and said, hey, you did a great job, but we need to tweak some things. So let me meet with you. So we met, and like when I did my audition, I had on makeup, I had on a wig, because, I'm trying to do the Hollywood thing. And she was like, I just need you to be yourself. I just need you to pull it all back, just take it all back, and just be more authentically you. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did. I did my makeup because my hair is just, I had afro. So when you see me in the show, that's just my hair and my afro. And I just thought about the stories that I had experienced, in that theater piece. And I did the audition once, twice. I did it a third time because it has to go up to producers. And I remember when I went on set, Danny Strong, who was one of the writers and producers, he was like, there was a part when we did, I think it was episode 6. He said, I didn't even realize how important this part of this story was until I was able to actually see it. So I knew that I was in the right place, telling the right story. And that's one thing that I'd like to do in my entire career. I always want to tell stories that are educational and inspirational, and that help people. I feel like that's my mission, in the acting space. I know I answered your question and gave you a lot more, but yeah.
That's great. That's what we wanted. We want people to understand.
Arischa, you're back to the way that I took in your your portrayal in the it reminds me so much of loved ones I talk to that are either trying to get their loved one in our program, or they're here and they're struggling with having a negative response to it. And we always try to kind of encourage them. I always try to encourage them, in this concept of tough love, which I think you just portray beautifully, because tough love isn't you cut someone off. It's that you're actually right there with them, but you're still following through with very tough things. You're not trying to relieve consequences from somebody, when they're justified. And I could literally say, hey, if you want to see what a good portrayal of tough love, and I could show people your scenes. So what I'm wondering is, you being in entertainment, I'm sure you get fan mail and whatnot. Have you received anything from people saying, hey, you know what, I've had to deal with this situation with somebody? I'm just curious because I mean, with the rate addiction is going on there, the thing about addiction is that it just devastates families and relationships all around them. So having that strong character of, hey, I love you, but I'm not going to cover for you, and I'm actually going to let you experience some consequences that I think you need to. That is something that is very, very, it's almost as difficult, I think, as dealing with the addict themselves, is dealing with the family that don't know how to do that, if that makes any sense. So I wondered if you've had any response from the public or fans or anything about that.
Well, no, I've not had any fan mail, but I was in a restaurant, and there's a woman who works with social services in some way. She's a social worker. And when she realized that I was, the person from Dopesick, she was just talking to me, and she was like, she told me she appreciated my portrayal because she sees it all the time. She sees it through the patients, and she sees it in the families. And I mean, it gives me chills just to think about it, because I'm glad that people have the opportunity to actually see it, and to hear from a social worker that, yeah, you were really on point. And that's been the only person who said anything. And it was an awesome moment for me, because I'm like, that's what I wanted to do. That's why I wanted to be such a part of this project. Because it is teaching, it is educational, and it does allow people to see things from various perspectives. And one of the scenes, there were so many scenes in there that were so heart-wrenching to me, like when the daughter passed away and the mom, y'all, and I read the script and I still was broken. But when Dr. Phoenix walks out of the facility and nobody is there, that to me was just like, but then Leah is still there. She knows what he's going through, but she's still there. Yeah. That's what I loved about that character. She's still there to help him and to push him forward and to encourage him. And when he goes into active recovery and starts his clinic, she's right there, and that can give someone who may possibly be going through it, let you know that you can still be there. You can still be there,
What I loved about that is you're the one person, your character is the one person that doesn't give up on him. And even though it's tough love and all that, there's encouragement, there's support. I mean, your character is the epitome of love in that show. And you brought that out well. I mean, with your abilities. And how do you become a character? How do you think through that? Teach me. I want to be an actor. No, I'm just kidding. I really don't. I'm afraid of it. It looks like hard work.
No, it's really just connecting it to a piece of yourself, because what you're seeing is me. What you're seeing is how I would respond if that were my family, because it's hard, but he had to have those consequences in order to get to the other side. That had to happen, and it was hard. You know what I mean? And I cried for like 2 hours that day because it's hard. It's hard, but it's something that needed to be done. And it's like, I love this person, but you have to get some help. And if this is the only way for you to get help, then I'm willing to be broken with you to get you the help that you need, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So it's just drawing from just me and my feelings and what I feel like I would feel like, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that brings to mind, how do you deal after the fact with those emotions? Because what you're portraying, you're not, I mean, it's acting, yes, but those are real emotions that you're showing us. And so how do you flip those off and go home and have supper with your family? How do you
Now,
deal
I'll tell
with
you,
those?
when I did that, we were in the mountains. Oh my gosh, I can't. Clifton Forge, Virginia. I was living in a hotel, you know, so I didn't have, it was just me. You know, when you get off set, it's just me going back to my room. But what I did is I melded the sad with the happy, because I was thinking about, like, my father was a single father for a long time, but when we were younger, he would take us to the park and we'd listen to the Commodores. You know, we'd have a good time. And those thoughts make me happy, but they bring that emotion forward as well. So this loved one that I have with these happy feelings is going through this sad occurrence. It allowed me to be able to not go in too deep to the sad, because I mixed it with the happy as well. And so when it was over and I was back in my room, my eyes were red for the rest of the night. Like, I called my husband, who's like super supportive. I even called my dad, you know, just to check in, to, you know, just to connect with my family, even though they weren't there, because family fills me up. And so I was able to, you know, just be full before I went to bed that night.
Right. Okay, good. Good.
Yeah.
You know, in a I guess in a general statement, I believe that in trying to help the addict or the world of addiction, hope is the most important thing. You know, we would be specific, me, Shirley, and Mark, in that we believe people need to get hope in Christ, but just hope, you know, that gets people's attention in even a more general, and, you know, people that have been successful or know that people have their back and whatnot. And I'm just now thinking about your character too. It's like, you know, she was the perfect person. Not only did you draw with your father, but it's, you know, you have all these things about your life that I didn't know until I wanted to study up. It's like, you didn't get married until you're 40, right? So I got married when I was 37. So I was a late bloomer too. I have a 5-year-old and I'm 48 next month, you know, and you wanted to be a singer, but you didn't become a singer, but you were a school teacher, among other things. But then you got into acting, and did I hear it right? Like, you broke into it about 50 when you're about to turn 50, or right when you turned 50?
I was acting before I turned 50, but you know, I live in South Carolina. I mean, you know, there are no towns in South Carolina that are huge. So, you know, I was acting locally, but I was also teaching. And as I would always say, like, my students would always help me with my auditions, and they were the worst auditions I ever did, but they were awesome because they did it with me. So they were bad. And I used to tell them all the time, you know, to always to know that if you put the work in, hard work, you can do anything that you want to do. You just have to work. You have to work. Yeah. And they knew that I was acting, and they'd be like, well, Miss Fry, well, why don't you act? And I took that challenge. But let me tell you, I felt like when I was in Misery is Optional, there's a line that always stayed with me. If you've seen my interviews, I know I've said it before, but it was leap, God's the net. That was one of the things that the person leap, God's the net. And I held on to that. And so I decided I worked at the district level, and lead God the net is always in my head. And I thought I was going to leave from the district level and take a year off and act, but I didn't because of, fear. And then they closed our department. That was God's way of showing me, hey, I'm giving you this out. But I was, afraid. I was like, I can't leave this job. This is this is where my money comes from. So I went back in the classroom, and it was the kids saying, Miss Fry, you should do this. And so I decided, okay, before I turn 50, I am going to take a year off, and I'm going to leap. I'm going to take the leap. And God was definitely the net. When I decided I did not sign my contract, that's when we went into the shutdown. The pandemic happened. Everything just, and I was like, oh my goodness, did I make a bad decision? But I didn't, because I was able to take classes from some of the best acting coaches in the United States. I could have taken classes in London if I wanted to, because everybody was online. And it was later that year that I booked my first role. And then my second was Dopesick. So, and on my 50th birthday, I did a show called Players that was on Paramount Plus. On my 50th birthday, I'm in LA on set. We're in the middle of the scene, and everybody, all the cast and crew comes out. And it was me and Eli Henry. It was his birthday as well. He's an actor. They came out singing happy birthday to us. And I knew that Leap, God's the net. You know what I'm saying? I was in the right place. I was in the right place. It was like, full circle moment.
I love it. I saw your film reel on YouTube, and when I saw you in the Bojangles commercial, I knew you were meant for greatness.
Yeah. Well, no, you talk about hope, and isn't it nice that God does that? You're having a birthday, you probably didn't even know. I mean, they surprised you with that, so it's always nice when God does that. And I mean, for me, looking at you and listening to you and your talents and all that, it's like it's a no-brainer that you are going to be successful in whatever way God wants you to. You just have a lot of talent, and I think I see him utilizing you in that way. And again, you came through, your character just was so loving to Dr. Keaton, or that's what we used to call him, Michael Keaton, but it was your dad. Yeah, Dr. Phoenix. Thank you. But it was great. And so yeah, it's neat when God does that. Tell us a little bit about growing up. Your dad, I've heard a little bit of it, but maybe our viewers haven't heard it. So I'd love you to just tell a little bit about your life growing up, if you don't mind sharing a little of that.
So, and I'll try. I might get emotional.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me get myself together. So yeah, I grew up. My dad is still living. My sister is not.
Okay. It was just the two of you, right? You and your sister with your dad growing up.
Yeah, a long time. Yeah, my dad was in medical school and raising me and my sister by himself. And so, like, as we we lived in Nashville while he was in school. He was raising us while he was in school at Meharry. And then we moved to South Carolina. We lived with our grandparents for a while. My grandfather was a minister, so we were, raised in the church. And then my father finished all his residencies and stuff. And then we moved to, Florence, South Carolina, and he got his own office, and he got remarried. My mother, Hilda Conner, and I have two brothers. Well, I have three brothers, because my mom is still living too. My mom lives in Lake City, South Carolina, Emma, and my three brothers, Benjamin, Chuck, and Ryan. But it was me and my sister growing up with Chuck and Ryan, because we grew up with our father. And my dad provided us a wonderful life. He is just an awesome guy to raise two girls by yourself, take on that responsibility, my voice is cracking a little, I'm sorry.
No, it's good. Yeah, I think about I have two daughters and two sons, and if it were just me with those two girls, I would, that would be tough. I didn't have a sister growing up, And so, I really, when my first daughter was born, I thought, what am I going to do? I don't know anything about girls, but I have my wife, my mom, that's it, and so, yeah, dad with two girls. But it sounds like he's an amazing guy still to this day.
Yeah, he is. He is an amazing guy. He really is. And like I said, my sister passed away in 2013 from cancer. Yeah. But she was like my biggest supporter.
Right.
Yeah.
She really was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry for your loss.
Yeah.
And it's always hard. I have two brothers that have died, one from a heart condition and one in a train accident. And when you've got those people that shared those shared experiences, whew, that is hard. So we're going to change subjects because otherwise Arischa and I are both going to be ugly crying.
You guys can't do ugly crying. Not the two of you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I can. So, well, one of the things that I just loved in one of the interviews, and you sort of referred to it here, was talking about just stripping down. I don't mean clothes, but I mean just stripping down your hair, your no makeup, just the whole, just being honest and just the you. And that is so foreign to, well, a lot of what we see in movies, but to our culture today, isn't it? Because we all are wanting to put on that mask that, oh, everything's fine. I'm great. So how do you take some of your experiences from your past and some of the things you've learned in the different roles you've had? How does that, or has it? Don't want to presume it has. How has that made you a little more aware of certain things, whether it's your role in Dopesick or Misery is Optional or anything else? Has it made you more aware of certain things and people around you?
Because of experiences, I mean, you always take pieces of anything you've done with you. Because I think about Misery is Optional, I keep going back to it, but just hearing their stories and knowing where addiction centers are. And one of the stories was like she was on a plane and she was in active recovery, but there was someone on the plane with a baby who was like kind of tweaking. And she said she knew where she was going, so like now when I'm on a plane, it's like I'm hyper aware of that, because I want to be compassionate, if I come in contact with someone, to let them know, keep going, you got this, you can do this, so it does make you very hyper aware. And I think about like when I did Swagger, because my character, it was Apocalypse Ann, and she's, she's the one who kind of introduces the pandemic to the show, and she's trying to get a message to her community, and that there's power in your words. So you have to, when you speak, you have to make sure that you're speaking positively. You know what I'm saying? Because it's important. What you say, what comes out of your mouth, is important, because it has the power to touch the world and your community. So yeah, I'm definitely hyper aware, and it helped me because, one thing that I've always said is a lot of times that we'll tell lies to ourselves saying we can't do this or this isn't going to happen, but we have to, change those things to truth, knowing that, with faith, with your belief, you can do and work. You can't leave the work out. With that work, you can do anything that you want to. So I'm very aware of the things that I say when I'm around people. I think I'm more compassionate now than I was before, because being a part of people's stories and seeing different facets of different lives through this art, I've just become, I was in an acting class. Oh my gosh, her name is Diane Charles. And we really studied empathy, and it made me just a more compassionate person. And I'm aware of that, especially more now. Being in this acting world has made me hyper aware of what I say, how I am, and how I treat people. So yeah, definitely.
That's so responsible, because when we say things like you're talking about, it impacts people. And I can imagine thinking through, like, how many millions of people are going to see this, and having to think through, like, I want to be positive and upbeat and give hope and give life. And so that is a powerful responsibility that I appreciate that you understand so well. I mean, much better than even I do, really. My wife helps me with that a lot. She's like, you can't say that. And I'm like, really? Why? And she's just more in tune to that kind of thing. And so I have to listen and learn from her. But that's great. I bet you were I wish you were my 8th grade science teacher. Of course, I'm older than you, so that couldn't happen. But I bet you were really great as a teacher. Tell us a little bit about that, if you would.
When I first started teaching, I had no idea what I was doing. I thought I still have students who would say, oh, you were my favorite teacher, but I didn't know what I was doing. But then I went to the district level for like 11 years, and being on the outside looking in, I learned so much. And I was also a coach, instructional coach to teachers who were having troubles in their classrooms. So working with them was also teaching me, and not unbeknownst to me, it was preparing me for going back into the classroom, because I didn't realize, that was on my path as well. So when I went back into the classroom, I knew I wanted to go to a school that was in our district that wasn't I wanted to go to a low performing school, because I was asked to come to like one of the highest performing schools in the district. I was like, no, I need to go here, because I need these students to know that, somebody cares about them, because they always say, nobody cares about us. Nobody ever comes out here, because it was in a rural area. So I went there and I gave everything. Y'all, my classroom, students would walk in my classroom and be like, I wish I was in this room, because I made sure it was an inviting area. I had lights. I had lights were my thing. I had lights and chairs and little areas. Like if someone came into my classroom and they were upset, there's an area for them to go to for them to cool down, where they have like a little light and a bench, and they can just have that area to themselves. I made that my space was an inviting space, and anybody in the school could tell you that. I gave them everything that I could. I really did, because that I feel like that's what they deserve. Yeah. So
you were a pioneer. You were a pioneer ahead of your time doing that kind of thing. I mean, that's great. Wow. That's really great. Now I'm a little afraid to yeah. I'm afraid to ask Jim to ask a question after he made the Bojangles joke, but I'm going to throw it over to you, Jim.
Well, I'm excited to learn about what should we be looking out for? Or you have anything coming up?
Well, SAG has been on strike we're on strike for 118 days, and now the strike is over.
Yay.
Yes. But I have a movie coming out November the 30th. It's a Christmas film. It's going to be on BET Plus, and it's my first leading role in a film. So I'm excited about it. And she's so me too. She's a loving mother who loves her family. It's a really sweet family film. And yeah, because we were on strike, the work wasn't coming, but I'm just hoping and praying that, things open up. I'm also an audiobook narrator, so I've been narrating some audiobooks. And I'm just, looking forward to the future. Whatever happens, I know that it's a part of my path, and I'm open, willing, and ready for what comes my way.
Yeah. And can you tell us the name of the movie that's coming out the 30th?
Yes, it's called The Christmas Ringer.
Christmas Ringer.
The Christmas Ringer.
Okay.
And it stars the young lady. I don't know if you watched American Idol, but I used to love it. I stopped watching after a while, but the year that Ruben Studdard and Clay Aiken won, I think she was in the top 3 with them. Her name is Trinice, and she plays my daughter in the film.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
wow. Oh, that's great.
It's such a sweet film. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Well, I'm a sucker for sappy Christmas movies.
Me too. Me too.
Rom-coms and things. So.
Oh yeah, I love them.
By the way, Mark, that Bojangles comment was not a joke. Okay.
No, I know.
I'm a huge Bojangles fan. All right.
I know you are. I know you
Listen,
are.
that was one of my first commercials, and I filmed it in Charlotte. I'm in Columbia, Charlotte. Charlotte is where Bojangles began.
Mm.
So the
Right.
very first Bojangles was in Charlotte. I don't know if that's where we filmed, but that was such a fun day for me too. That was like my first commercial. So I'm like, and I remember I would walk down the hallway and the kids would be like, "You the lady from the Bojangles commercial."
That's cool.
That's great.
Very cool.
Yeah, I can always rely on Jim to make things light, so that's good. Jim's funny.
Yeah, I don't think I told you. I'm in North Carolina now, so
Oh,
yeah. So
okay.
my wife's favorite fast food place is Bojangles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Started right there in Charlotte. So
yes, ma'am. So
So that's
Yeah.
that's going to be a leading role on BTS Plus, BET Plus. I'm
Plus.
sorry,
Plus, yeah.
the Christmas Ringer, and you're in a leading role. That's wow. That you're just going to get more of those. That's what I think. You do a great job. Thank you. But I want to know about the singing. Did you sing? I want to hear just some of the stories of that. And I tell you, Shirley is a gifted musician, and I appreciate. My son is an exceptional musician, and singing is something I like to do privately so that no one ever hears me. For their love to them, right? Because they probably don't want to hear me sing. But when you can sing, I just think that's an awesome talent. So how did you discover that you could sing well?
I think when I was younger, there used to be like these magazines, and they would have the lyrics to songs in the back. So me and my friends would always get the lyrics to the songs, and we would just sing, and it was just something that I liked to do. And I remember when I was younger, I always said I wanted to be like Stacey Lattisaw. And then I would go to church, with my grandfather. And it's not that long ago, but I'm going to say back then, a lot of the singing was done without music. There were no drums and keyboards and all that stuff. It was just like a call and response. And, it would be so full, with the call and response. And I loved that. And so as I got older, my dad was like, okay, girls, y'all have to pick something because I need you to get involved. He wanted to keep us involved and stuff. And my sister was interested in modeling. And my dad was like, okay, so both of you are going to modeling. Oh my gosh, I hated that. Modeling just was not my thing. And he was like, okay, I can tell you don't like this. What do you want to do? And I said, I want to sing. So then he took me to voice lessons. And so I started taking voice lessons, Jocelia McWhite. And I entered a pageant. It was the Miss Hal Jackson's Talented Teen pageant. And I won for the state of South Carolina. And then I went to the Apollo Theater. That's where we had our pageant. I didn't win, but that just really, just being around so many talented people. And then when I went to college, I sang with our jazz band. I opened up for Ramsey Lewis. I opened up for Sinbad, just in my travels. I sang background for Aaron Hall, who used to sing with a group called Guy. Where we opened up for In Vogue and Morris Day and the Time. So, I've had some, stuff. And then I sang in a wedding band for like 13 years. And so it was a wedding show band. So if you've ever been to a wedding where there's a show band, there's a lot of dancing. And so my knees were like, you can't do this anymore after 13 years. Woo! It was a lot of dancing. And so what happened was, this is a long story. It's not a long story. Okay. What happened was when I was working in the school district, they had a district choir. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to be on the district choir because, you know, it wasn't my career, but I still love to sing. And the guy who was the director, his name was Walter, he was like, hey, we're doing a play, Smokey Joe's Cafe. I want you to come and audition. I auditioned for Smokey Joe's Cafe, and I got in that. And that's what propelled my career in acting because of Smokey Joe's Cafe. And so someone who was there, and they have a production company here in Columbia, Wow Productions, they invited me to be in their play, and I was in their play as an understudy. I'm talking long, I know. As an understudy,
No, it's good.
and I had one show out of 4, and they were filming, and because the film crew, when they filmed, the best thing that they filmed was that one show. So my show was on DVDs. Like you can see, it's on Tubi. You could buy it because they sold it, so it's national. And so that's just what started my singing, that dream that I had. You know, when I was a little girl, I want to sing. It's what propelled me into acting. But I still sing. I sing at my church, downtown church here in Columbia, South Carolina. So I still sing. I haven't put it away. And I collect ukuleles as well. I love them. I have a baritone, a concert, a soprano, and a bass ukulele. I love them. And I try to put them up every now and again. And when I go away, like when I was doing Dopesick, we were in the mountains for such a long period of time. I had my ukulele with me. So I would just, you know, it kept me company.
That's cool.
Awesome.
And made me happy. So yeah, but I still sing. And I would tell anybody, it doesn't matter how old you are, whatever it is you want to do, you can still do it. You can't be limited by anything. Just do it. Just put in, with technology the way it is now, just put it out there and do it. You can be the star of your own show on Instagram or YouTube, you know, like all of you are the star of your own show. You know?
Well, you're a person who walked by faith. You left a career to pursue a dream, not knowing, you know, what was going to happen. You know, God's really blessed it and blessed you. And so, and I love your heart, you know, for students and the students that have a harder time than others. You know, you really have a heart for the down and out, and it came out in Dopesick. I mean, to me, to us that watched it, we were just, I mean, I was blown away. I would tell my family, I said, this nurse, she's just, you know, you just seem real to me, like a real person. And the show was great. There were all kinds of themes and different, you know, plot lines or whatever you call that were in the show. But I really thought your part with Michael Keaton's part and that whole thing, I loved it. So Jim, I know, probably did as well.
Oh, I loved it. Yeah.
He's a big fan.
Yeah.
We love the show.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arischa.
That means so much to me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes, we've loved getting
You're a blessing.
glimpse into who you are and where you've come from. And I know that those that are listening are going to. And so thank you for being here with us. It's been a joy.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for your work. Thank you for what you do. I pray that so many people can come and get something and glean something from you. So thank you for what you're doing in our community.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Well, it was a joy having you. I just, man, I feel like, you know, we should go a few more hours just because you're, but we won't. We won't. Well, thank you. Yeah.
Thank
well,
you.
everybody, take care and God bless.
Bye.
Bye.